Okay, congratulations. Welcome to the final part of the fourth part of this training, and just a little summary and conclusion of this particular fourth course. So you've done all the hard work at this stage. You understand the closing process. So here, as usual, I'll just give a recap. We'll talk about what you've covered and a few notes, and then summarize the whole process right through for what you covered here from beginning to end. And then obviously at the end of this, we've got an assessment which will really test you, and I think you'll get a good idea of if you have an understanding of this or not. And as usual, as I've said in the other courses, if you don't be afraid to go back, start again. That's the point of this. It isn't to annoy you. It isn't to create a burden. The idea of this is to allow you to really test yourself and to get an understanding and practice and get familiar with the process before you put this into practice in the real world. Maybe just to finish, before I do say goodbye, just a few little points that might be worth mentioning. If there's anything I've learned over the years when it comes to this particular process, is that course advisors tend to take the parts that they're comfortable with and that they like from this, and they tend to ignore and maybe skip over the parts that are a little bit awkward or that they don't quite understand or they don't quite believe in. And if there's ever a fault or anywhere where there was room for improvement for any course advisors, experienced or otherwise, it is not skipping those parts. There's such a benefit to sticking to this process beginning to end. And there's a number of reasons for that. Number one, it sets the standard. We talk about, you've seen that poster on the wall in our offices about culture is what you do when nobody's looking. Well, nobody's looking at you when you're sitting in that room or on a Zoom appointment with the student, or with the prospective student. But if you raise your standard, if you raise the bar to always deliver to this standard, if you ask every one of your prospective students these questions, if you cover all of this detail, you will always deliver the highest standard of support, advice, and guidance for that prospective student. And you can say with your hand on your heart then that every time I meet with somebody in Pitman training, I give the best advice. Nobody could ever walk away feeling that they didn't get the support, advice, and guidance, and answers to the questions that they needed, and more. So there's always value. And you can reassure your tutors in the center. You can say, absolutely, you can hand on heart tell people to travel in to meet me, travel 4 hours if they have to, because it will be worth it. It will be absolutely worth it because I give the highest standard of appointments, because I give the best advice and I follow this process in detail. As well, secondly, this process is the result of many, many years of mistakes and I suppose things we've all learned. So as we find something that works, as a student suggests that this is useful or that's useful, or someone points out that this actually works quite well for them, or something fails, or there's a shortcoming in some aspect, we've updated and tweaked the process. So it's the result of all of those years of experience and mistakes. So you have to really, I suppose, trust us, and that everything that's covered here is covered for a reason, and it's important and it's beneficial. So that's also another aspect. And I suppose, thirdly, there's a lot you cover in the appointment process that's really useful later on. For instance, after 4 weeks or the first module, you'll be expected to meet with your student and review their progress to date and so on. It's nice to be able to refer to your notes from this particular meeting and your follow-ups afterwards and be able to say to them, well, these are the objectives we agreed. You did say you had this many hours a week to train. You also told me you had a laptop. You informed me that you hoped to be finished the course by the 1st of October. All of those details, you told me here that your mother is very supportive. Is she still supportive of you doing this training? How are you finding that? How are you finding that you're motivating yourself from home otherwise? All of those kind of notes are very, very useful if you have them for the appointment. And it's very reassuring for your student as well if they see that, God, the detail you have and the level of detail that you're focusing on. Equally, in a year's time or 2 years' time, you could have a student where there's an issue, a concern, a complaint, some frustration from that student if they don't graduate or they don't complete their course on time. Often they will look for external factors to blame and ask to meet with you and so on. That's the nature of the role. And if they do meet with you and you're sitting down with them, it's at that point you need to be able to say, no, this is what we agreed when we started. This is what I suggested for you. This is what we discussed. Because sometimes students might say things like, well, my original plan was always to do this kind of course because I wanted to work in that type of industry. And you could say, well, no, that's not actually what we discussed. And we never discussed that at the 4-week review either. So let's be very, very clear. And it'll give you great confidence, and it's a great support knowing that you've got that detail and those notes in future. Also, sometimes people will come back to you a year, 2, 3 years later. You'll want to dig out these notes and say, well, look, this was what we originally agreed, that kind of thing. So for all of those reasons, it's very, very important to trust in this process and to really I suppose, take every single step and fill it in and note it and ask the questions on every single step. Another reason, and this is more of a universal thing, and we've talked about this, and perhaps this is something for separate training, but there's another advantage in having a process like this, and that is, regardless of external factors, if you trust in the process, you will get the outcome. The analogy is often used with sport, and I suppose I've already given you some examples of this, but if you think of in rugby, a penalty kick, you know, an out half for someone kicking penalties, you know, that out half will kick a penalty using the same procedure. They will step back, they'll take 2 steps to the left, they'll breathe 3 times, they'll look at the post, they'll look at the ball, look at the post, look at the ball, stay looking at the ball, and maybe run up and kick, whatever the process is. I'm not great on this kind of things. But the point is, they will always do the same thing because they want to focus on the process. Because sometimes there are external factors which could have a massive influence on whether that ball goes over the bar or not if you are distracted or focusing on external factors, such as the crowd, such as noise, such as the importance of the kick. So perhaps the kick is something on a Monday morning that you're kicking the ball over the bar to practice as your first kick of the week, or perhaps it's a kick to win the Champions Cup. It's the last kick of the game. You know, the whole season, the whole history of that club might depend on that kick. But you'll notice that out halves, or if it's in soccer, it's a, you know, a penalty kick, whatever, it's always the same. You might wonder, how do these guys deal with pressure? How do they just step up and do this? But if you ask them, the answer always is, it doesn't matter. I focus on the process. I just do the same thing. I trust. I know that if I put my head down, if I take these steps, if I turn left to right, and if I focus and breathe and look at the post, that 85% of the times I kick the ball, it'll go over the bar. Or, you know, from a penalty kick point of view, a striker might say, look, if I'm let, you know, have the time to take my steps back, to breathe, focus, decide on where I'm kicking it, I know that, you know, I can hit 91% of my kicks will go in. So I'm confident that it will go in, whether it's a World Cup final or whether it's practice on a Tuesday morning. So, you know, whether it's sports or whether it's an appointment, the point is you've got to trust in the process. This works. And it frees you up from worrying about external things like, oh my God, I've had no enrollments this week, and all that sort of stuff. That's kind of, for want of a better word, it's a bit salesy, and that's not what we're about. So if you focus on the process, you might find that this week, 5 people enroll. Next week, nobody gets back to you. The phone hasn't been answered and you're going, what's happening? But if you still focus on the process, on average, over 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, people will enroll, people will get back to you, people will be advocates, and you'll find that it works. So that's my strong advice. I know I'm talking a little bit here and it's supposed to be an introduction just to your summary, but I just wanted to give you that final thoughts, because I think it's important as you finish up this particular aspect of the course to really remember that, I suppose I've said throughout all of these courses, I've highlighted common mistakes. So I wanted to give you the most common mistake of people who graduate from this program and go on to be course advisors. And that is that they get a little bit lazy with this process, because they find that by implementing 40, 50, 60, 70% of these steps, people enroll and people are happy and are delighted with it. But if you aim to get to 100% of this process, or as close as possible to that, by completing every single section, always sending your summary email, always sending your detailed email, always making the calls when you say you'll make the calls, and so on. If you do all that, and if you trust in this process, you will find that, 1, it frees you up to worry about external factors, and number 2, that it works. And ultimately, that's what you want, that you want to get those people enrolling or out there saying that, you know what, that's the best experience I've ever had. That's the best course advisor. That advice changed my life. And that's what you want. That's what you want people talking about. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed the course. Like I said, we'll give a quick summary here and then you can do your assessment. If you find you're struggling at this point, as usual, we can go back and start again until you're comfortable with it. And us as a team are here to support and help you all the way. You will make mistakes as you're sitting in appointments. A lot of this stuff, you'll have it in your head, but it'll be difficult to implement it, and that's fine. One of the things I suggest is, as you go through each appointment, that you reflect yourself and that you take a few notes and you try and see what's coming up, what's a common problem that I'm making, what's a mistake I'm making, what's something that I keep forgetting to do, so you can really focus on doing that the next time, and always be looking to improve your process and looking to improve how you deliver that appointment, so you really can wow the prospective student and deliver a remarkable service, and you can be proud of that then. You can be proud of that standard. So that's it. Thanks again for all the training. Thanks for your focus and your support here. We do appreciate it. I hope this really works for you when you put it into practice, and I hope, even though it was a bit of work, I hope you actually enjoyed the course some way, and that you really see the benefits of it as you put it into practice. So best of luck, and I'll be right behind you supporting you.